Welcome back to Piercing the Shroud. Today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my own experiences. One that I had back in 2015, June 26th. I would classify this experience as I guess as a craft sighting, like UFO, UAP phenomena. Maybe not necessarily craft because it seemed more like it was a drone. This took place in Dayton, Texas, when I was living in a trailer park. The time of day I would say was probably about, I don't remember exactly, but somewhere between like 3 and 6 in the evening. And as for how long the experience lasted or the sighting, this one lasted about 15 to 25 seconds tops. It was pretty brief. And there was no sort of like distortion to time or anything like that. I was alone for this entire sighting, though I wanted to go inside and get my brother, but there just wasn't enough time. And I was not under the influence of any psychedelics, drugs, or alcohol. I asked that to everyone, so I might as well answer it myself. And so, yeah, this experience happened right outside of my trailer where I was living. I was sitting on the little back porch. It wasn't really much of a porch. It was more just a like 4 stairs leading up to the trailer with a small little like 3x3 platform. It was on a fairly sunny day. I think it was partly cloudy, but the sun was shining whenever I had the sighting, and it was very clear weather. So this experience, it happened somewhat suddenly. So I was out meditating on the back porch, which I had been doing day after day after day for probably right about 2 months at this point. And I had just started getting into meditation. And whenever I did, I went hardcore with it. And I was meditating out in the summer heat and doing other practices that I can elaborate on further later along the lines of psychokinesis. And at the time, I was also studying a book called The Secrets of Anti-Gravity by Paul LaViolette, which I suppose is relevant because what I saw seemed to be anti-gravity technology. And I also believe that the psychokinesis practices might have been part of what drew this specific drone in. When I was learning psychokinesis, I was told by some community members online that there was a potential for it drawing in like either weird sightings or even like military choppers and stuff like that, which I did have a few of those fly directly over my trailer park. But on this specific occasion, I was sitting, I was taking a break from my practice, and I was chilling on the top step of the porch directly outside the back door of my trailer. And I was in the habit of going like this and like looking left and right to make sure that nobody was like walking past. And I was doing that because I was often, like I said, practicing psychokinesis. So I didn't want like the neighbors to think I was losing it or something. So I was pretty cautious about keeping an eye out on people passing. And I was doing just one of my habitual checks, and I saw something in the like my peripheral, and I was like, "What was that?" And I immediately like whipped my head back, and so about 50 feet or so away was my neighbor's trailer, and right above that, a little bit back from the end that was closest to me, maybe like another 10 feet like into the trailer, there was up in the air, probably about like 20 feet high tops, a orb about the size of like, I don't know, somewhere between like a soccer ball and a basketball. And it was just a solid metal orb. It looked like it was the texture of it kind of looked like the lead fishing weights, is like the best I could describe it. The color was like as close to black as you can get while still being gray, like a really, really dark gray. And there was like etchings across the center of it that kind of like it went across the center and etched out like what looked like a camera port, and there was like a large etching and then a smaller one that went around it and like with like layers of etching into it that looked kind of like geometric. And it went all the way around, but like not like super even, so like there was like layers of the etching, so like it kind of like, almost like staircase. And so like as I looked back at it, it was in middle of like the 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 port was like the camera port seemed like it was like turning away from me. So whenever I saw it, it was completely stationary, and then I look back and it's already starting to like turn on an axis, like super smoothly, and it turns and just starts to float away, completely silent. And I was just like awestruck. I kind of like jumped out of my skin and was just like continuously like kind of, I guess probably loudly. I don't really know what my volume was at the time, but I was just like, holy shit, holy fucking shit, holy shit, and like just cursing up a storm as I like had my eyes like locked on it. And I I like stood up and was just standing there kind of like cursing, watching it as it slowly floated away. Probably, I don't know, probably took about 10, 15 seconds to leave my line of sight. And it was just, it looked so eerie because it was flying so completely smooth that like it was like almost like messing with like my brain, like how kind of unnatural it looked, the way like it was just on this like solid axis, completely silent in the air. And like I said earlier, probably between 60, 70 feet away from me, and just smoothly floated. I don't think it didn't really go that fast. I don't think it probably broke like 5, 10 miles an hour. It floated away until it passed a stand of trees and was out of my sight. And I was just like immediately racking my brain, like surely someone else is gonna see this. Someone else has to see this. So the reason I stood up was because I put my hand on the back door because I wanted so badly to like open the door and yell for my brother to come out. But I was like, but I was like so like riveted on watching it that I just couldn't pull my eyes away. I knew that like it was leaving. I didn't have long enough, even though like I so badly wanted to get my brother to come see it. I knew there was no chance that it was gonna still be there by the time he came out. And so I just stood there like desperately wanting him to like come see it as well, and just cursing up a storm, and just it completely blew my mind. After this experience, uh I got my PlayStation 4 and I put it on Facebook Marketplace and sold it so they could get a video camera. After that, I got into CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, because this had just blown open a new door for me. And so I ended up delving into CE5 and meditating on that a whole lot for extraterrestrial contact. And after about 2.5 weeks, I started getting success there as well. And I'll talk about those experiences in another episode. And so, yeah, to go over a little bit about me, I'm CJ Hazley. And on top of being the host of this podcast, I'm very much into meditation, psychic abilities. I'm also an avid like fantasy and sci-fi reader and writer. Currently working on a fantasy book, and I've put a lot of time into a sci-fi book that I worked on for years. It currently is sitting at like 430 pages and is most of a book. And at some point, I'll probably finish it, but it's probably not going to be soon. So don't hold your breath like some of my family have been. Sorry, guys. So yeah, back in 2015, really, I had a dramatic shift in my perspective. I started to look into a lot of like meditation and like kind of psychic ability stuff after years of being a very staunch atheist. It didn't take much experimenting for me to realize that there was something to it. And I had had experiences that kind of cracked that door open for me where I was like, I'm either losing my mind or there's more to reality than what we're shown and what most people accept. So I had had a number of experiences where I had dreams, and then exactly what happened in the dream would happen in my day to day life. And it wasn't like, you know, these passing deja vu moments. It was very clear scenarios where exactly what happened in the dream would happen, like, or something very, very close, like a conversation that's completely abnormal, like my sister talking to me about an anime and telling me exactly like what episode in the anime she was on and stuff like that, on top of having some experiences in high school whenever I was kind of playing around with psychokinesis before I even knew what psychokinesis was. I just always felt like humans had a whole lot more potential than what's accepted. Because I don't necessarily think that people are just like lied to about what we're capable of. I mean, for on like certain government levels, like CIA and stuff, like they know and they're not telling the public. But for most people, they don't know what we're actually capable of. Like we we do have the potential for superpowers, in my humble opinion. And I've had experiences that point in that direction as well. And eventually, I'll get around to covering those experiences too. But to cover a little bit of my mental and like emotional state at the time of this experience, I was pretty much at like the height of my joy since entering teenage years. So like I was kind of a little bit of a somber and quiet teenager, and at this point I had pretty much completely come out of that and was experiencing a whole new world of meditation and just like lightheartedness and just really feeling good and kind of like stepping into myself. And so I would say my mental and emotional state at this time was very good. And uh I was reading a lot about like certain like fringe topics like anti-grav, which supposedly the book by Paul Laviolette, Secrets of Anti-Gravity, it's supposed to be based on some reverse engineered like B2 stealth bomber or something. The book kind of like proposes that the technology in the B2 stealth bomber that allows it to reach insanely high speeds and fly very quietly is likely some sort of a anti-grav tech, or as they prefer to call it, electromagnetic gravitics. As for how and why this experience happened to me, I honestly still don't have a solid answer for how necessarily. I think I know why. I think it happened because of the psychokinesis, specifically aerokinesis practices that I was employing, where I was manipulating a whole lot of energy to stir up the wind in my environment. And I was told by people who taught me these methodologies that when you start moving energy around like this, the government and even like other like beings, they have satellites and like technologies that are monitoring the earth, and they can see when energy is being manipulated on this scale. And to me that seems quite probable, as it was a very wild thing to see. That's not something that most people ever see. And whenever I saw it, it seemed to be pointing directly at me. So, yeah, that pretty much rounds that out. So, thank you for joining me on this episode of Piercing the Shroud. I'll likely be doing a lot more of these one on one sessions and just kind of going through some of my many experiences that I've had over the years. Until next time.